these problems, which I think he had a lot of foresight here, several decades of foresight, that these problems were so large that individual intelligence could not solve them. And that what was needed was some sort of what he considered the collective IQ, that somehow humanity would need some sort of infrastructure to allow them to share information and collectively operate together. Now, the interesting thing about Douglas Engelbart was he was a lone man. He couldn't find any funding to do this. His boss thought he was crazy. Everyone thought he was crazy. And he goes off and tries to get some funding for this. And eventually, one of the people at the U.S. government notices him. A fellow called John Licklider, who did indeed work for the Department of Defense. And John Licklider funds Douglas Engelbart. And Douglas Engelbart creates something which is called the online system, which was an early version of the internet. It was terribly clunky. And they were trying to experiment, how would humans go through information? So, you know, the main thing that came out of all Douglas's work was not the World Wide Web, but the invention of the mouse, because it's very interesting how humans interact with information. But he tried many different things. The original mouse was actually connected to your knee, and they also connected it to your head. They were trying to see maybe move your head and it moves the mouse on the screen. But Douglas was always very frustrated that somehow technology never seemed to be able to fulfill the potentials of what he wanted to do to increase collective IQ. And around this time also the internet started happening in the United States, but the internet was only one project of many. Most countries at this time, and this is in the 70s, had some form of internet. And perhaps one of the most interesting, which is also not terribly well known about, there's a very wonderful book about it, was called Project Cybersyn, which came out of Allende's Chile. So Allende, who was a socialist elected in the 70s to be the premier of Chile, decided that, you know, one of the real problems we had as a socialist government was how to organize production. So, you know, how could we get it so that workers over here could say, we don't, you know, we need to produce less, we need to produce more, and how we could communicate this in real time. So he hired a very odd English nudist called Stafford Beer, who was also a cybernetics specialist from the University of Manchester, and him and Fernando Flores and other people got together and built one of the first internet-like systems called Cybersyn. That's cyber with an S-Y in at the end. And what's very interesting about that is as soon as it got working, of course, there was a right-wing reaction like Pinochet, sort of military coup. Cybersyn was not actually used very much to organize production. It was mostly used to sort of move trucks and production around various sort of blockades during the coup. And eventually when Pinochet and the Americans eliminated the Allende government, they saw Cybersyn, they didn't know what it was, they didn't know how it worked, and they destroyed it completely. So that's, you know, there's a sort of abortive Chilean internet there. But in the United States, not being victim of any coups, the internet kept developing.